I'm Audrey Wilson, 24 years old, and for most of my life I clung to the belief that family meant unconditional love. That comforting illusion came crashing down the night of my younger brother Kyle's graduation dinner. Years of favoritism and unequal treatment all came together in one moment that left me feeling both invisible and betrayed. I sat at the long oak table in our dining room, surrounded by relatives who had gathered to celebrate Kyle's big accomplishment. He had barely managed to graduate high school, but my father beamed with pride as if Kyle had just been accepted into Harvard. Then, in front of everyone, Dad slid a shiny set of car keys across the table and announced that he had bought Kyle a brand new car. The room erupted in applause and congratulations. When it was my turn, instead of praise or acknowledgement, my father turned to me with cold, detached eyes and handed me an envelope. Inside was not a gift, not even a card, but a bill, rent he expected me to pay for living under his roof. I felt my throat tighten. My 4.0 GPA, my full-ride scholarship, my years of hard work had earned me nothing but heavier expectations and less affection. That night didn't just sting, it changed everything. Before I continue with how my life completely shifted from that moment on, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Growing up as the older sister to Kyle, 6 years my junior, felt like living in two entirely different households within the same walls. From as early as I can remember, I noticed how differently our parents treated us, especially my father, Richard Wilson. When Kyle brought home a test marked with AC, Dad would ruffle his hair and reward him with ice cream. But when I came home with straight A's, the response was always the same: "That's what we expect from you." It wasn't just once or twice, it was every single milestone. That pattern carried through our childhood and into our teenage years. By the time I graduated high school as valedictorian, I had already secured a full scholarship to State University. I maintained a 4.0 GPA while juggling part-time jobs to cover living expenses. My graduation was marked with a modest dinner at home, where my gift was a coffee mug that read, "The real world starts now." Meanwhile, Kyle coasted through school with CS and DS, constantly needing tutoring, extensions, and leniency just to scrape by. And yet, the year he barely managed to graduate on time, my father rewarded him with a car and speeches about how proud he was. After college, I returned home temporarily. My plan was simple: work for a year or two, save money, and then pursue graduate school in psychology. I landed a job at a local mental health clinic as an intake coordinator. It paid decently, but not nearly enough to afford an apartment in our expensive city while also saving for grad school. Living at home was supposed to be a smart financial decision, a stepping stone, not a sign of failure. But my father never saw it that way. Richard Wilson, a self-made contractor, took pride in building his business from nothing. He admired toughness, resilience, and what he called grit. Kyle, who shared his interests in sports, cars, and hands-on work, naturally became his favorite. They could spend hours talking about engines, games, or football, while I, who leaned toward academics, books, and long conversations with my mom, was treated more like an obligation than a daughter. My mother, Laura, a kindergarten teacher, should have been the balancing force, but instead of challenging my father's blatant favoritism, she enabled it. Anytime I voiced my feelings, her excuses were the same: "Your father shows love differently to different people," or "Kyle needs more encouragement than you do." I tried addressing it countless times. I'll never forget the night I told them how hurt I was that my recent promotion at work had gone completely unnoticed. Instead of congratulating me, they brushed it aside. Yet just weeks earlier, Kyle's first part-time job at the mall had been celebrated with dinner and cake. "You're comparing apples and oranges, Audrey," my father said dismissively. "You've always been self-sufficient. Kyle needs more support to find his way." My relationship with Kyle himself was complicated. To his credit, he never gloated about the favoritism. In fact, he often seemed completely unaware of it. He looked up to me, asked me for help with homework, sought advice about friends and relationships, and genuinely admired what I had achieved. I didn't resent him, I resented the way our parents were setting us up for such different futures. Deep down, I worried that the constant coddling would leave him unprepared for adulthood, while I was being forced to carry weight far beyond my years. Still, I held on to hope. Throughout my early 20s, I believed that once I proved myself in the professional world, my father would finally see me as an equal. Every achievement, a promotion, a successful project, a dollar saved, felt like another piece of evidence I was building in my case for his approval. But the truth was already staring me in the face. 3 months before Kyle's graduation, I had received a substantial performance bonus at work. Excited, I shared the news at dinner, hoping, just maybe, for a proud smile from my dad. Instead, He gave a brief nod, then immediately turned to Kyle to ask about his baseball game. When Kyle was accepted into community college, something that should have been expected given his average performance, my parents threw him a celebratory dinner at a fancy steakhouse, inviting extended family. When I was accepted into all 5 of the graduate programs I applied to, my mother baked a cake, but my father never even bothered to show up. The most painful memory came last Christmas. My father handed Kyle a brand new gaming system, congratulating him on working harder in English, even though all he had done was improve from a D to a C-. My gift? A planner for the upcoming year, with a sticky note inside that read, "To help you organize your goals." Even my Aunt Meredith, who had seen these dynamics play out for years, couldn't hide her disapproval. She pulled me aside afterward and whispered, "Your father has always struggled to connect with people who don't think like him. It's not about love, it's about understanding." But her words, though kind, did nothing to ease the ache in my chest, because deep down, I had already accepted the truth. My father wasn't failing to understand me, he was choosing not to. And the night of Kyle's graduation dinner proved it once and for all. Conversations in our house had always followed the same pattern: heated moments, followed by silence, then my mother's attempts to smooth things over until the next inevitable blow-up. But this time, something inside me snapped. I couldn't let it slide anymore. "No, Mom," I said firmly, my voice trembling but resolute. "This needs to be said." I turned to my father, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "Dad, I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval. Do you even realize what that feels like? To bring home straight A's and hear nothing but, 'That's what we expect from you?' To juggle multiple jobs through college so I wouldn't have to ask you for money, while Kyle has everything handed to him without lifting a finger?" My father's jaw tightened. "Kyle has different challenges," he began. But I cut him off, the words spilling out faster than I could control them. "Yes, he does, and I love him regardless. This isn't about Kyle, this is about you, about how you've made me feel invisible in my own family. Tonight was just the final proof that no matter what I achieve, it will never be enough for you." The silence that followed was thick, pressing against my chest like a weight. From outside, I heard the muffled sounds of Kyle's friends dropping him off, car doors slamming, boys laughing, voices echoing their goodnights. Life went on as usual for him, while inside, my world was collapsing. My father's expression hardened, closing like a vault that had been sealed too many times before. His eyes, once the ones I desperately sought approval from, were now cold, unreadable. $900 by Sunday, he said flatly. "If that's too difficult for you, perhaps it's time you found your own place to live." His words cut deeper than any argument we'd ever had. It wasn't anger in his tone, it was dismissal, final, like I was nothing more than an unwanted tenant in his home. In that moment, something inside me gave way. Years of working for recognition, of making excuses for him, of telling myself that family dynamics are complicated, all of it collapsed under the crushing weight of those few callous sentences. "You're right," I said, surprised at the strange calm in my own voice. "It is time." My mother's eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. "Audrey, don't make any hasty decisions. Your father doesn't mean what he's saying. We can talk about this tomorrow." But I looked at my father's face, and I knew with absolute certainty that he meant every word. There was no misunderstanding, no moment of temporary anger. He had made his choice, and in that choice, I finally saw the truth. Nothing would ever change unless I changed it myself. "I'm going to bed," I whispered, my throat tight. "It's been a long day." I turned to leave, desperate to escape before the tears came, but his voice stopped me cold. "Remember," my father said, his tone as sharp as a knife, 900 by Sunday. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because in my heart, I already knew I wouldn't be there on Sunday. At that moment, the front door burst open. Kyle stumbled inside, his face glowing with the unfiltered joy of youth. He tossed his graduation cap onto the couch and announced to no one in particular, "Best day ever." His voice filled the room, clashing against the heavy silence that lingered between our parents and me. For a brief second, I envied him, envied the simplicity of his happiness, the freedom of not knowing the weight of expectations, the bliss of being cherished without having to prove yourself. He spotted me by the staircase and rushed over, still grinning. "Audrey, did you see Dad's gift? I can't believe it. A car. I feel like the luckiest guy alive." I forced a smile and wrapped him in a quick hug, my heart aching with both love and sorrow. "I'm glad, Kyle, you deserve to be happy." And despite everything, despite the injustice, despite the ache that hollowed out my chest, I meant it, because my anger was never truly at him. It was at the parents who had raised us under the same roof, but in two completely different worlds. As I walked upstairs to my room, The sounds of Kyle's excitement and my mother's anxious whispering faded into the background. I closed my bedroom door, leaned against it, and let out a shaky breath. My father's words echoed in my mind, 900 by Sunday. But even louder than his voice was another, clearer thought: I'm done waiting for him to see me. It's time I see myself.